the psychology behind calm detachment that breaks the avoidant cycle. You ever notice how the moment you stop chasing someone, they suddenly start paying attention? It's not magic, it's psychology, but most people confuse detachment with indifference. The truth is, calm detachment isn't about not caring. It's about caring in a way that doesn't cost you your peace. Let's talk about the avoidance cycle, that painful dance where one person pulls away and the other tries harder to close the distance. The more you chase, the faster they retreat, and the more they retreat, the more anxious and desperate you feel. But here's the twist. This dynamic doesn't end when you find the right person. It ends when you learn the psychology of calm detachment. Calm detachment is not about pretending you don't have feelings. It's about mastering your nervous system when your emotions are screaming for validation. It's about saying, I can love you deeply and still not abandon myself in the process. When you reach that point, your energy shifts. You stop trying to get love and start embodying it. You stop trying to prove your worth to someone who's unsure. And instead, you communicate your worth through your consistency, your calm, and your boundaries. Here's what really happens. When you're calm, you break the reward loop that keeps avoidant partners running hot and cold. You no longer feed the drama they unconsciously rely on to feel safe. They feel your steadiness, your grounded energy, and that changes the dynamic completely. You stop being the pursuer and start being the mirror that reflects back their own patterns. So calm detachment isn't withdrawal, it's emotional maturity. It's loving without control. It's giving without losing. It's caring without clinging. And the moment you embody that, the avoidance cycle ends, because the part of you that used to chase finally feels safe to just be. Calm detachment is one of the most misunderstood emotional skills. People often think detachment means you stop caring, that you have to shut down or become cold to protect yourself. But true calm detachment is the opposite of that. It's caring deeply while refusing to let your peace depend on how someone else behaves. It's an internal shift from seeking control to owning your emotional center. When you detach calmly, you're not walking away from love. You're walking away from the chaos that comes from needing constant reassurance or reaction in relationships, especially those caught in the avoidant anxious loop. A subtle but powerful reward system forms. One person pulls away and the other instinctively pursues. Every time the pursuer chases, they confirm the avoidant's unconscious belief that intimacy is overwhelming. Every time the avoidant retreats, they reinforce the pursuer's fear of abandonment. It's a cycle of emotional triggers disguised as connection. What calm detachment does is quietly break this loop by removing the reward both sides get from the drama. When you stop chasing, something remarkable happens. You teach your nervous system that you can survive emotional uncertainty. You don't text to get a response. You text because it feels aligned with your truth. You don't over-explain yourself to convince someone to stay. You express yourself because clarity is part of your peace. In that subtle shift, you take back emotional power, not over the other person, but over yourself. You become less reactive and more responsive, which creates space for healthier patterns to emerge. The psychology behind this is rooted in emotional conditioning. The human brain is wired to seek patterns that provide relief, even if they're unhealthy. The anxious partner gets a rush of temporary safety when they re-establish contact. The avoidant gets a sense of control when they distance themselves. Calm detachment interrupts both of these conditioned responses. It introduces something unfamiliar: stillness. Stillness makes both partners confront what they've been avoiding. The anxious person faces the discomfort of not being chosen, while the avoidant faces the discomfort of genuine closeness without escape. That tension is where growth happens. But calm detachment isn't passive. It doesn't mean waiting silently while someone decides your worth. It's active self-regulation. It's noticing the impulse to send the 10th message and instead taking a deep breath, grounding yourself and asking, what am I hoping to feel right now? It's realizing that no external reassurance can replace the inner security that comes from knowing your value. The act of detaching becomes a form of self-respect. You're not punishing anyone, you're choosing peace over panic. Over time, this calm energy rewires your relationships. People respond differently to someone who isn't desperate for their approval. The dynamic shifts because you're no longer reacting to fear. You're operating from grounded confidence. Whether the other person rises to meet that energy or not becomes secondary. The real transformation happens inside you. You stop seeing detachment as distance and start seeing it as alignment. You realize that love isn't something you have to chase. It's something that flows naturally when you stop gripping so tightly. Calm detachment, in that sense, isn't losing power. It's remembering you never lost it. Emotional control doesn't mean suppressing how you feel. It's about creating enough space between what you feel and how you act that you no longer let fear dictate your choices. In moments of emotional intensity, especially in relationships where there's an anxious or avoidant pattern, your nervous system can convince you that panic equals truth. When someone pulls away, your body interprets that distance as danger. Your heart races, your stomach drops, and your mind starts searching for ways to close the gap. This is the point where most people reach for their phones, send the text they'll regret, or over-explain their feelings just to feel safe again. Calm detachment doesn't mean ignoring that storm. It means learning to sit in it without letting it control the steering wheel. When you feel anxiety rise, your instinct is to fix it through action. You want to say something, do something, prove something just to calm the noise inside you. But when you do that, you're teaching your body that the only way to feel safe is through external reassurance. That becomes a loop. You need their response to relax, and when it doesn't come, you spiral. Breaking that loop begins by allowing the discomfort to exist without immediately trying to solve it. It's training your system to tolerate emotional uncertainty. You take a breath, you feel the tension in your chest, and you remind yourself that you are still safe, even if you don't get a reply. The more you practice this, the more your emotional endurance grows. You start realizing that the feeling of fear is just energy moving through you. It's not a signal that something's wrong or that you need to chase someone to fix it. When you can feel anxious without acting from anxiety, you're no longer ruled by the emotional reflexes that sabotage connection. Instead of sending that reactive message, you give yourself time to reflect. You ask, is this action coming from fear, or is it coming from love and clarity? Most of the time, when you pause, the need to act fades, and what remains is truth. From a psychological perspective, this is self-regulation, the process of managing your internal state regardless of external chaos. The human brain craves control, and uncertainty feels like a threat. But emotional maturity is the ability to experience uncertainty without needing to control the outcome. This doesn't make you detached from reality. It makes you deeply grounded in it. It's like standing in the middle of a storm and realizing you are not the storm. You are the calm observer watching it pass. When you develop this level of emotional control, everything about your presence changes. People feel your steadiness. You stop feeding the anxious energy that pushes others away, or the reactive panic that fuels avoidant behavior. Instead, you bring a quiet confidence that says, I can handle this, I can feel this and still choose peace. That energy is magnetic because it's rare. It tells others that your love is not built on desperation or fear, but on self-awareness and strength. Over time, this practice rewires your nervous system. You stop chasing calm through others and start generating it within yourself. The need for control fades, replaced by trust. Trust in your ability to navigate whatever emotions come your way without losing yourself in the process. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are doors that show others how to enter your life with respect. They are quiet, powerful signals that communicate your worth without the need for arguments, demands, or explanations. When you have boundaries, you teach people how to treat you not through your words, but through your consistent behavior. They are not a test or a threat. They are an expression of self-respect. Boundaries say, I value myself enough to protect my peace, my time, and my energy. They are the invisible lines that define where your responsibility ends and another person's begins. In relationships, many people confuse love with endless giving. They believe that to keep someone close, they must always be available, always understanding, always forgiving. But when love becomes an act of self-abandonment, it loses its authenticity. True connection cannot grow where one person constantly betrays themselves to maintain harmony. Boundaries are what keep love healthy. They preserve balance. They allow you to care deeply without being consumed. When you set them, you're not being cold or selfish. You're preserving the space where genuine intimacy can exist. Psychologically, boundaries reinforce a sense of safety and predictability. When people know where you stand, they can relax. They don't have to guess how far they can go before you break or how much they can take before you resent them. You remove the tension that comes from unspoken expectations and replace it with clarity. That clarity creates trust, not only in others, but within yourself. Every time you honor your boundary, you send a signal to your mind that says, I can count on me. That builds self-esteem far more effectively than any external validation ever could. Without boundaries, relationships often spiral into patterns of resentment and burnout. You give more than you receive, hoping your generosity will be reciprocated, but instead it teaches others that you will tolerate imbalance. Over time, that erodes not only your energy, but also the respect others have for you. People tend to value what has clear limits. Just as a masterpiece is framed, your time and attention gain value when they are protected. It's not scarcity, it's intention. You're showing that your energy is meaningful and that those who receive it are being trusted with something valuable. Boundaries also have an emotional frequency. They communicate stability. When you say no calmly and consistently, you stop operating from fear of rejection, abandonment, or conflict. You start operating from alignment. You begin to trust that the right people won't leave when you honor yourself, and the wrong ones will reveal themselves quickly when you do. That knowledge saves you time and heartache. It frees you to invest in connections where respect flows both ways. What's powerful about boundaries is that they don't just protect your emotional space, they shape your identity. They remind you that you are not here to be chosen by everyone. You are here to choose how you show up. Each time you hold your boundary, you reinforce your own value. You stop needing others to confirm it because your actions already do. That kind of quiet confidence changes everything. It draws people who respect you, not just people who want something from you. There is a distinct difference between being a reactor and being a regulator. A reactor absorbs the emotional state of others and responds impulsively, while a regulator stays grounded even in moments of tension. Becoming a regulator doesn't mean you don't feel deeply. It means you no longer let other people's emotions dictate your own. You stop allowing someone else's withdrawal, silence, or anger to pull you out of your center. This shift is one of the most powerful emotional transformations you can experience because it moves you from powerlessness to emotional sovereignty. In relationships, it's easy to fall into reactive patterns. Someone pulls away and your anxiety spikes. Someone criticizes you and defensiveness rises. Someone gives you mixed signals and you chase clarity. These reactions are automatic. They come from your nervous system's survival wiring. The brain registers relational distance as a threat, and your body responds with panic or anger to protect the bond. But when you learn to regulate, you catch that automatic response before it takes over. You breathe, you pause, you observe the emotion without immediately turning it into action. That space between feeling and doing is where your power lives. The psychology behind regulation is rooted in awareness. Emotional regulation starts with noticing what's happening in your body before your mind starts spinning stories, your chest tightens, your stomach knots, your breath shortens. In those moments, the goal isn't to suppress those sensations, it's to soothe them. You bring your attention back to your body, back to your breath, and remind yourself that not every emotional spike requires a reaction. This is how you teach your nervous system safety. Even in uncertainty, you begin to realize that you can experience emotional turbulence without being swept away by it. When you operate as a regulator, you shift the emotional tone of your interactions. Instead of mirroring someone's chaos, you ground the moment with your calm. This doesn't mean you become passive or detached. It means your response is intentional, not reflexive. You start to respond from your values instead of your triggers. For instance, if someone becomes distant, instead of panicking or pleading, you stay steady. You can acknowledge what you feel and still choose to respond with clarity and grace. That kind of emotional composure changes dynamics. It often leads others to soften because calm is contagious. Regulation also builds emotional credibility. People feel safe around someone who doesn't lose themselves in every wave of emotion. They begin to trust your steadiness, even if they can't always match it. Over time, this steadiness becomes your anchor. It keeps you from internalizing someone else's emotional state as your fault or your responsibility to fix. You start understanding that you are not responsible for managing other people's discomfort, only for managing your own. Becoming a regulator takes practice, but each time you stay calm when you used to react, you strengthen your emotional resilience. You reclaim energy that was once spent on overthinking, explaining, or trying to control outcomes. You stop dancing to the rhythm of someone else's instability and begin setting the tone yourself. That's where true emotional leadership begins. Not in controlling others, but in mastering your own presence so powerfully that you influence the energy around you without saying a word. To love without losing yourself is one of the highest forms of emotional maturity. It means you can give deeply without dissolving into the person you love. It's the balance between connection and individuality, where you remain rooted in who you are, even as you open your heart to another. Many people mistake love for merging, believing that true intimacy means becoming inseparable or sacrificing personal needs for the sake of harmony. But when love requires you to disappear, it stops being love and becomes dependency. Real love doesn't demand that you shrink. It asks that you expand while remaining whole. When you love without losing yourself, you bring your full identity into the relationship, your passions, values, and boundaries. You don't suppress parts of yourself to be more acceptable or easier to love. You understand that love thrives not on constant proximity, but on mutual respect and emotional freedom. When two people can stand side by side without losing their individuality, their connection becomes stronger because it's built on choice, not on need. You are not together because you can't be alone. You are together because you consciously choose to share your lives. This kind of love requires deep inner security. Many people enter relationships seeking completion, hoping another person will fill the emptiness they feel inside. But no partner can permanently soothe an unhealed wound. When your sense of self depends on someone's approval or attention, you start bending your behavior to keep them close. You silence your opinions to avoid conflict, compromise your values to keep the peace, and overgive to feel worthy. These patterns create temporary comfort but long-term exhaustion. Loving without losing yourself means recognizing that your emotional equilibrium must come from within, not from external validation. From a psychological standpoint, this balance comes from secure attachment, the belief that you are safe, loved, and capable, regardless of another person's behavior. Secure people don't cling when distance appears, nor do they shut down when emotions arise. They stay present, grounded, and compassionate, both toward themselves and their partner. They can say, "I love you, but I also love me," without guilt. This self-assurance doesn't weaken the relationship, it strengthens it. It allows both people to show up honestly without fear of being consumed or controlled. When you love this way, your actions shift. You no longer overextend to earn affection, nor do you withdraw to protect yourself. You communicate with authenticity because you're not afraid that honesty will drive someone away. You stop chasing reassurance and start trusting your own worth. Your love becomes a gift, not a negotiation. You understand that presence means more than proximity, and peace means more than approval. To love without losing yourself is to understand that relationships are mirrors, not sources. They reflect your wholeness back to you, but they don't create it. When you remember that, you can love with open hands instead of a clenched fist. You can give freely without fear of depletion because your sense of self remains intact. That is the kind of love that endures, not one born from desperation, but from depth. It's calm, steady, and alive, precisely because it comes from two people who know they are already complete. When we talk about calm detachment, we're really talking about emotional freedom, the kind that allows you to love without fear, connect without control, and walk away without bitterness. The avoidant cycle thrives on emotional reactivity, on the back and forth of anxiety and withdrawal. But the moment you learn to regulate your emotions, to set boundaries, and to stay grounded in your self-worth, the cycle loses its power. You no longer chase closure, you become it. You no longer beg for peace, you create it within yourself. Calm detachment is not coldness, it's clarity. It's seeing love for what it truly is, a choice, not a rescue mission. It's realizing that your peace is not negotiable and that anyone who truly values you will meet you where calm begins, not where chaos thrives. When you reach that level of inner steadiness, relationships stop feeling like battles to win and start becoming spaces to grow. You attract differently, you communicate differently, and most importantly, you show up differently. So, if you take one thing away from this message, let it be this. Your calm is your power. The world moves differently when you stop chasing and start aligning. The right people, the right love, and the right peace all find their way to you when you no longer fight to prove your worth. Thank you for giving your time, your presence, and your heart to this conversation. I hope something here reminded you of your strength, of the stillness that lives beneath the noise. You deserve love that feels like peace, not survival. You deserve connection that honors your calm, not one that tests it. Keep choosing yourself, keep growing gently, and remember, you are never too much for the right energy and never too little for your own healing. Thank you for listening, for reflecting, and for being brave enough to do the inner work. Until next time, take care of your peace, honor your boundaries, and trust the quiet power that lives inside you.